opportunities, and it's honestly just a great time to do that for every single person. But if you do want to make a life choice about it, that is a great choice to do campus ministry. And then I decided, you know what? I love teaching. I love it. I love, teaching about God, and I love talking about God, and who would pay me to do that? So along with my master's in religious ed and all the experience there, I was just lucky enough, blessed enough to get the opportunity to teach. So now I teach high school. It's my first year teaching, so that alone can have its own show of what teaching is. But it's so much fun and so much to really impart and learn from the kids. I always tell, the kids, just as much as the teacher's teaching you, you're teaching me. So I'm so happy to share that today with you guys. And anything, regarding that, anyone who wants to call in and talk about that, please, or even give feedback. I'd love it. So that's my short intro.
Oh, thank you. I was actually going to ask you what was one of the mission trips that you went on and how that impacted your life. I know.
Right.
Curveball.
Well, I mean, you would know, Caterina and I, we shared a lot of the campus ministry throughout all the different colleges in Long Island. But we did the last one that I was a part of, and lucky enough to be part of with Hofstra, was in Camden, New Jersey. And we went to Camden, and I don't know if people know this, but Camden is the poorest city in the nation. The poorest city in the nation. It has 10. Yes, yeah, and it's right in our backyard. Yeah. Like we don't even think about it because we always think mission work has to be overseas. Yeah. Yeah, right, France. It has to be like in some foreign country where you're like in this weird photo with people who just don't look anything like you. Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, everyone needs help everywhere. Needs help, yes. Right? But to
nobody
know that
really looks right in your neighborhood.
Correct. To be right in your backyard, people just skip over it. So Camden is 10 square miles. And you think of Camden because that's where like the Campbell's Corporation was. And when they pulled out and everyone left that particular town, it just became this industrial, ghost house. It was just all these corporate buildings, but no one there. And it just really affected the community there. And there was so much drugs. There is so much drugs. I mean, that 10 square miles, when we were there, you would see cops everywhere. Wow. There is so much, infestation of drugs and addicts and just not enough structures to help this community. So when we went there, I think even my students were like, we're going to Camden? Like, we're not going somewhere cooler, this isn't a good photo op. But I wanted to really stress that it's right here. A lot of people find that they can't start this journey. They can't help anyone because they don't have the means or the funding to go across to Africa, go across to, whatever other country you can think of. But it's right here. And so we did that. We did everything from helping out in shelters to being at a parish, praying together every single night, learning. We stayed at the Romero Center, and I encourage everyone, if they can, to go there because it was such a great experience. But being able to be in the community, and we even did, I think the best part about that trip, if I can even say it, was we had to live on $3 a day for this one experiment.
Wow.
Because that was the dynamic that the people there live on. When they have this big family of 4 or 3, they have $3 per day, and you have to find a way to live with it. So we did this experiment of giving each and every one of us $3 and going to the supermarket and finding out what we could buy, what we could live off of. And I mean, when I tell you, my kids were like, I have a headache. I can't even function. We're doing this actual work, helping homeless shelter, cooking, cleaning, whatever. Yeah. And I have a headache. And we thought, how are people living every day who can't get the nutrition from their meals doing their daily job? How are kids going to school? How are they learning when they have a headache or they have, hunger pains? And so just to be a part of that for a week, we spent a week, you know, but to see what people are really living like. And it's here. It's in Long Island. It's in the city. And it's right there in Camden, New Jersey, the poorest city in the nation. That's like 3 hours away from here.
Wow.
Yeah. So things like that, I think we really got to be mindful of because we do it around Christmas and like Thanksgiving. But it can be done any time.
Even now, Lent is a great time, Almsgiving, to give to the poor, the shelters, to give food, the food pantries. Yeah. That's, it's a great idea. So, so thank you for sharing. That's,
of course, yes.
That's a big, something to keep in our prayers as well. Another thing about Lent, too, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving.
Yes.
And I guess the fasting, too, we could unite our fasting with people that,
You know what they say, and I think I'm going to steal this from Father Sean. All right? He said fasting without prayer is just a diet.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Fasting without prayer is just a diet. He said if you are giving up carbs and sugar and all this good stuff and sweets for when you're, thinking about Lent, but you don't replace it with something, you don't put anything in, then what are you doing? You're going to look great. You're going to fit in that dress. You're going to look great in that cropped, photo. But then, how is that helping your relationship with Christ? Because that's what that is. Lent is about you understanding. And when I teach my kids, it's about you understanding that Christ in this particular, snapshot, because that's what the church is doing. Our liturgical calendar is just looking at all the snapshots of Christ's life. And in that particular moment that we're looking at, we're celebrating, he's suffering. He doesn't have food. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have drinks. He doesn't have anything that's, physically, fleshly, comforting. And to really unite yourself with that moment in his life is what we are trying to do. But if you're just doing it because you want to look great, it's kind of counterintuitive to what you want out of that season. So I encourage people to really think about, when you think about fasting and Lent, what are you giving up? Yes, that's great that you can be disciplined. But then what are you replacing with it? Wow. Yeah, what are you replacing with it?
That could be just, I was just thinking about Jesus in the desert when, after he was baptized by John the Baptist, the Holy Spirit led him to go into the desert, and he was fasting for 40 days. So that was what you said, that he didn't have friends, he was alone, he was fasting, he wasn't eating, and then that's when the devil tempted him. But he was praying to God, and he was spiritually strong even through the suffering. So he was able to overcome the temptations with God's grace, with the Father, and united with the Holy Spirit, because he's human but also divine. So yeah, I mean, definitely in little ways we can replace the fasting, or like say that delicious chocolate that we were yearning to have, and just say, God, you know how much I really want this chocolate right now, but
I'm doing this for you.
I'm doing this for you. Please, please help this person who's going through a rough time, or just, I want to get closer to you. Just help me, and just simple prayers.
Yeah, I think what we don't focus on is we look at the fact that Christ was able to overcome everything. And we just feel like we should be able to do that too because he did it. But there's a step that I think we're all missing that I wish we would all focus on, is the fact that it's not easy. That he's sad, he's hurt, he's hungry, he's thirsty. He's probably feeling just as low as you feel. And I think we only connect with the fact that we're supposed to be this model of holiness. And I wish people would understand that, he was part human. So he felt it. Like, the only reason that we're looking at the fact that he overcame something is because there was something to overcome. And so the idea that you are connecting with that suffering is really important. I don't know about you, but when I'm suffering, that's probably the only time that my guard is down, my ego is deflated, and I can hear God the most clear I've ever heard him. Yes. I don't hear him when I'm so proud, when I'm so excited. I might thank him. I might give a shout out. But it's like being on that award show and you're like, I want to thank God, but you're not really connecting to that pain. So I feel like a lot of the times when we're thinking about Lent, we need to understand that sitting in that mucky, sad feeling of I want but I can't have, or I want but I know that's bad for me, or I'm sad that I'm alone. It's not always happy to be alone, know? And I think people really fear that, because that's why we get into the things that we get into that we probably don't need to. All right? But like sitting in that feeling, are you sitting in that aloneness? Are you sitting in that temptation feeling to really know what it feels like? Because we constantly get in this feeling and we make these choices because we want to jump out of that feeling quick, fast. We want to get out of feeling depressed. We want to get out of feeling alone. We want to get out of feeling like I can't have when I really want to. No, really sit in that. Let it wash over you like waves. And when you really get comfortable in that feeling like he did for 40 days, you can sit in it and you don't fear it anymore. When it comes again, because it will, it's going to come in different forms and different aspects of your life. You don't feel afraid of it to the point where you want to run and jump to the next move without really thinking about, what is this next move going to do for me? How will it complete me? How will it foster a better relationship with Christ? Because that's what happens. So I always see, people focus like you did. We focus on he overcame it. We can do it too. And it's great. It's a battery in your back. But understand that there was something to overcome and really get through that. Because it took time for him. Yes. It took time for him. Like, that was his battleground, his training before we know him to be this big warrior that we love and revere. So I think that's also something that we should point out.
That reminded me of a small video that I saw yesterday on YouTube, actually. Deacon Sivers, I think. And he was talking about healing, and one of the first steps about healing is allowing yourself to feel certain feelings. So that could also, I guess what you were saying could also apply to, like, if you've had a wound or someone's hurt you, or you're just angry or upset about something. The first step to healing is allowing yourself to feel it. And then the next step, you know, to, with God's grace, to pray and to forgive that person.
Yeah,
So France, you would agree as well, something similar, I guess, happened in your life, or we could just...
well, let me put a little intro on me.
Sure.
My name is France, and I am from St. Catherine of Siena Parish, and I have been part of the Faith Formation program there for 6 years. And it's been such a blessing. I didn't even realize it was like 6 years. I was like, oh, I just feel like I just moved to this area and I just met these new great, amazing people. And it actually has very much transformed my life. And it was through struggles of like me being in this new area, just moving to Long Island, and just meeting people. And I met Caterina through St. Catherine of Siena, and I was just, like, in awe. Like, aren't you in awe of her so much? I can't.
Her spirit is so gentle.
Amazing.
It's very welcoming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But, so, and I've been working with mostly 8th grade confirmation kids. So these are teens. I want to call them teens instead of kids, but because they have enriched my life, and I hope that I've enriched in their life too, because they give me so much strength when everything is down, and you go to your work and you're like, oh, I'm so drained, and then you go and teach this class, and you're showing them like, okay, this is. I always tell my can I call them my teens? I call them my teens because I don't have kids. I'm single.
Right, yeah.
But you know, there's always amazing things that God uses you when you're single or you're married. But these teens have helped me so much in strengthening my faith and the things that we discuss. And I always tell them that, aren't you guys excited? Because you guys are about to have the last day of your first day of your spiritual life, because after confirmation, you guys, it's on your own, like, to step out there and see, like, what does Jesus really want in your life, and that's what we try to help with them with campus ministry, and especially during high school years and college years.
They like to be referred to as young adults.
Young adults. When they become from teens to young adults.
Young adults. That sounds cool, right?
I know, right? I'm like, what? Okay. No, but I think you're right. I think what France is getting at is that we're part of that important process of giving them their first faith. I call it the first faith, right? Okay. In the sense of we prepare them to know the basics, right? To start this open relationship with Christ. And it's awesome to have this blueprint to go back to when you go out in the world, and you will get lost because we all do. You know where to revert back to if you so choose. So I call it the first faith. And my kids say that sometimes too, because some of the things that they're learning, their concept that they're not comfortable with, you know, we have a lot of different kids that I'm teaching. Even in my class alone, I'm dealing with certain students who are of a different sexual orientation and relationships, different religious backgrounds. Not everyone who I'm teaching is Catholic. Okay, you know, so it's very open, and that's what I love about Catholicism, is that we love everyone. We just want to talk about God to everyone. but to know that we're giving them that first faith, because the second faith is really when they have to go out in the world and go, how does this apply to me when life throws me a curveball?
Right.
You know, when I don't make that test, when I don't get that job, when the boyfriend or girlfriend that I love breaks up with me. You know, when I'm financially missing things, how do I do this? And that's when you have, you know, your relationship with God come right in. And it's amazing that you have that blueprint that we are so lucky enough to go through with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think we learn too, right, friends? I'd say we learn too.
I definitely learn from them because of the questions that they give me.
Yes.
And I'm just like, if I didn't know it, I am all about like questioning my faith. I'm about like learning, researching everything.
Yes, yes.
So we actually have a caller. His name is David. He called in, so we're gonna take this call and yeah. So and then we'll get back to our conversation. Hello. Good morning. Hi.
Hi, David. How are you?
Good morning, David.
Good. Thank you for joining us today. What is your question for us, or what did you want to say to Chiva or France? Or?
I just wanted to, how long you've been on your journey and stuff, and what age did you start, and what motivated you to do what you do?
Good question.
Those are great questions. Yeah, Chiva, do you want to?
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. So, I mean, we were on this topic of first faith. And I would say my first faith was definitely something given to me by my parents, right? Dragging us to Sunday school and all that good stuff, which I hated. I hated. And I'm sure you
You're
can
not
probably,
the only one.
right? I'm sure if you've had a parent like ours, you know you're in church all the time. But you know what? I think it really started at my undergrad year going to Fordham University. I graduated with undergrad in psychology and theology as a double major. And I remember going in and I remember loving the theology classes that they made you take, these core classes. And it was like, wow, I love these more than any other class because I felt like I was just learning about the Bible. And I thought, I'm going to be a nun. I swear to you, David. I was like, I'm going in. I go to my chaplain and I'm like, sign me up. Gonna be a nun, put me in the chair, like what do I gotta do? And he's like, you know, Chiva, we gotta talk about this commitment before you just jump down there. And so when I realized that it took a lot more, right, I started thinking, well, what do I need to give and how can I serve God? What is my purpose? You know, how can I get involved in something that's way bigger than me and, you know, also it has gender roles, right? You know,
right.
You can't be a priest. And that is really where it took off. I think when life throws you those curveballs and you are, you know, God talks to you. He gives you these graces. Like, I didn't know Fordham was a Jesuit institution. I went there because they were giving me the most money. As any young kid coming up in the city, you want to go to college, how am I going to pay for it? So I think really listening to the whispers and God's graces that come into your life and having that set up with my parents, it gave me a reference, as we were saying, right, is where it began. And then that journey took off as I just started answering the call and not ignoring those little whispers. Mm-hmm. It was like, okay, God, you may want me to be here. You want me to learn about this. Okay, you're opening this opportunity here. And I encourage people to start off with internships. I encourage people to work for free when they're learning about this field because it's what feels good to you. And in that faith journey, and I'm still on it, right? Every day is a walk.
Exactly,
it is. And I don't think anyone should feel like you just have the answers as we're sitting here. We're all really trying to walk this walk. But as long as you are talking, it's like having that friend. You have to have this best friend that you talk to. If you never talk to your best friend, they're not going to really call you a best friend and get you an invite to the dinner, you know? So you just got to keep answering that call and talking to him. And with that, from college to now, it's been so progressive, and I'm so proud that I've been able to answer some of the calls, some of the whispers that I've got from him, and you know, I'm just hoping that I can keep doing that. So
yes.
Hopefully,
Amen.
If you're going through the same thing, just keep picking up the phone. That's really the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yes. With my faith journey, actually, I was very rebellious. Going through my faith journey, there was a point in time where I didn't even go to church. I shouldn't even say that, but it's true. It's true. It's part of your faith journey. But actually, I have to credit the military for that. I was in the Navy, U.S. Navy, as an electrician's mate for 6 years, and going there, and it used to be like, okay, Sunday is your free time, and I wanted to just be like, all right, they're offering me church, I'll stay in church. And I was going through the Baptist masses, Baptist, all those non-denominationals, and the Catholic sermons that they were going through in the military, and I was enthralled. I was enjoying myself. And throughout my military career, I've just been offered all these things and questioning my faith. And I was really thankful for my parents because, you know, any parent who, like Shiva did, was like, they always would tell me, oh, you should stay as a Catholic. Mm-hmm. But when you do find your first faith, you just have to listen to God. And I'm still going through this walk, and I think through this walk, I went through faith formation and working with teens. And one of the best things I've found is adoration. That is the go to your friend Jesus Christ's house and just talk to him, like, and understand what he wants for you. And that is my faith journey. Like, I go to adoration. I try to go to adoration at least once a week for an hour a day, just reading the books there or praying the rosary, or just looking at Jesus and say, all right, Jesus, I am on the floor. Like, I don't know what's going on. Help me, walk with me, help me take up my cross. And that is how my faith journey started. And it's still going on. But for me, adoration, going face to face with Jesus on that faith is so great. So, I mean, that's all I could say about that.
Well, thank you, David.
Thank you, David, so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you calling in, and I honestly, sincerely encourage you, even things like that, what you're doing right now, tuning into this radio show, just keeping the ideas fresh in your mind is really, really significant, and just showing God where he places, in your heart. So that's awesome.
And,
yeah, that definitely, you gotta always listen to that voice, because he will never stay wrong anyway. He'll move for good for us.
yeah,
Amen.
for
Amen.
sure. And if you're on Long Island, there's a Perpetual Adoration Chapel at St. Catherine of Siena in Franklin Square. I just wanted to let you know, if you're ever in the area, you could check out that chapel, or any church really, and just spend some quiet time with Jesus. It's 24/7, that chapel, so you could go in whenever you like. So yeah, thank you so much again for calling in, and God bless you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow, what a great man.
I know.
True man of God, like, still walking his faith journey. That's amazing.
Yeah, shout out to that.
Shout out to him.
And I like that you said true man of God, because I actually have a note here that there's a...
Shameless.
Shameless.
Caterina's always on time.
There's a movie coming out. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called, it's about St. Paul. It's the life of St. Paul. It's called Paul, an Apostle for Christ, a message for the modern age. So it's actually coming out on March 23rd, next week. Wow. And it looks really good. It's a live action film that details the life of Paul, and I believe Luke as well, and just really dives into the scripture and makes it come alive.
What do we know about St. Paul? Let's really get this out, because I think a lot of people don't. What do we know about St. Paul? Because we were talking about this with my students. St. Paul, who was known as...
He was a murderer, right?
Former name. Does anybody know the name?
Oh,
Come on.
Saul.
There we go. I was like, I'm going back to my teaching days. No, I mean, because the idea that we're even watching a movie on St. Paul is so awesome because of his history.
Right.
You're dealing with someone who, now we revere him as St. Paul the Saint and all he's done in the church and all his work. But this is a former anti-Christ... Killer. I mean, he essentially was chosen, and I always use this quote when I talk to my students, that God doesn't call the qualified, but he qualifies the called, okay? Because here you have someone who is persecuting all the Christians in the early church, persecuting them, on the road to Damascus, looking for Ananias, who is essentially going to be the person who saves his sight. And Christ meets him on this road and tells him, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you hunting down my, spiritual leaders? And blinds him until he gives him back his sight. And who gives him back his sight? Ananias, right? The same person he's going to look down and hunt for. And it's just amazing to see that not only does he use someone who is ultimately his enemy, right? but he uses him in such a way because St. Paul, who we know now, is so amazing as a character because he knows what it is to not be a Christian. He knows what it is to be completely engrossed in this Roman period. And so he has the gift of gab to be able to talk to different crowds, to be able to evangelize in a way that nobody has ever seen. Because the Christian disciples, who are, have grown with Christ, have had, this upbringing with him, growing with him in ministry, all they know is Christ. But Paul comes in and he's well versed on what it is to be completely against it. So when he goes out to talk to these crowds, he can use imagery, he can use words, he can use language, he can connect on different social groups that most of them couldn't do. So when Christ uses him, it's a testament to the fact that I'm going to use you and show you that the hardest heart can be a Christ lover. The hardest heart can be softened, can be taught, can be educated. Hate can be replaced with love. But also, too, he uses him in a way that shows, I'm going to use your strengths that even you don't know that you have that can be used for good, right? It's not just about you going out there and being, adamant about killing people. Let's use your ambition, your passion for something good. And I think a lot of us can relate to that in that movie because so many of us are not qualified. we just literally ask for these things in our life that we're not qualified for. How many of us are like, oh God, why don't you send us a husband? Why don't you send us a wife? And we're not ready for that.
Yeah.
We would get in that job interview, quote unquote, and we'd fail. We would, we want all the money in the world, but are you ready to deal with how you should handle all the money in the world? We want to be popular. Are you ready to deal with the attraction, the pressure? Right. And so all these things we ask for and we're not qualified for. And I think when we think about movies like that or people like that or saints like that, it's really looking at how you can't do it alone. You need the grace of God. You need that hand in your life to go, I'm going to use what you are coming in with and I'm going to qualify you for that position. I'm going to qualify you for the next phase in your life. I'm going to qualify you for the next step in this journey that is your spiritual journey. And that's what I love about St. Paul. And my kids were like, wow, we watched this movie on him the other day. And they were like, I didn't know that. We just thought he was a saint. Well, he's a saint with a past. And that's essentially who we are.
Yes.
We all want to be saints, but we have a past.
Did you show a different movie to the...
we just found a clip. We have like 40-minute classes, so I wish we could.
Okay. Like the trailer.
Right, yeah. So we showed like a little clip of it, and they were intrigued to know that a saint had that former past, because everyone thinks of saints as holier than thou and that we are aspiring to be this model of holiness, but how do we get to that point? And I try to connect them with where they are and meet them where they are. You're not there yet, and that's okay, but it's where your eye is on. Are you on that prize? Are you looking at where you want to be, and are you taking the steps to get there? So to know that they can see people that they can connect with is awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, one quote that came to my mind when you were saying that is that all saints have a past and all sinners have a future.
Amen.
And
that's beautiful. Thank
it's
you.
so true. And like everyone has a walk that they need to do. And when people come up to me and they're like, I don't know what saint I'm gonna do for confirmation and stuff like that. Like, don't think about it as like, oh, this is who I like aspire to be. Like, think about what kind of gifts that they have that you might want to have, or what is that inspires you from their past that they became this kind of person. I'm so thankful for my confirmation teacher when I was confirmed, because I felt like she got the blast of everything, that questioning that I had, and she just was like, I can't believe it. Like, this is a person that's questioning everything right now. But she told me that it's like, just let God in your heart and listen. And she just was so amazing to me and that kind of thing. And I feel that I was motivated to ask more questions. And God just puts people in your life all the time to answer those questions.
It reminds me of that scripture, be still and know that I am God.
Oh,
right?
Yes, yes, exactly. So for me, that would be like an amazing thing to see at St. Paul. And one of the greatest characteristics that I feel when I think about St. Paul was that his ministry was just to go to a place, introduce Jesus to them, set them up, and then move forward. He goes to all these different places in Europe and Middle East and just sets up the churches. And through his letters, we can listen to like this is the things that he was saying to them. And I was just like, wow, like they are having the same problems that we are. Yes, like, different times, different questions, different things that they have to go through, but the heart, the things that were coming from their heart. And St. Paul was saying that through them, through these letters, through the Roman Empire. And I was just like, wow.
Well, I think you have to be mindful of what is the mark of a good teacher. Like, we're all Catholics and Christians in this world, right? Trying to do the call, trying to answer the call, which is go and make disciples of all nations. That is a task that we were entrusted to by Christ. But the idea that you said, I think it was a great point, Francis, when you said he sets them up for success and then he leaves them. And I know we're like, leaves them. But here's the thing. When you're a teacher, all right, and I'm only saying this as my first year teacher, and I'm sure I'll have more insight as I go along this journey. Okay, nowhere near am I perfect yet. But I did learn, and I just was at this conference at NYU. It's the Sophia Institute, and it was a great conference. They had a few different people speak, but there was one great thing that we talked about, which I think would probably connect to the road. They had this talk on the road to Emmaus, right? The walk to Emmaus. So, what did Christ do to be a good teacher to these disciples? What did he do in that short little snippet of, parable, or it's not even really a parable, but that journey there, to give them that insight, to give them what, they need to know and go forth and be great, making great disciples of the next nations.
Right.
And it was the fact that he meets them where they are first and foremost. He goes, what are you doing? Where are you walking? What's going on? Right? They don't know who he is, but he's so approachable. And the guard is down. He's not coming in authoritatively. He's just speaking as a person inquiring, a friend. But as they talk and they said, you don't know what happened? Christ was murdered and so on and so on. And he reminds them at that point, listen, didn't you hear the prophets? And he corrects them in a way where it provokes their thought. And he gives them this insight to the point where they want more. They're like, come and stay with us. Sit with us. We want to talk to you more. Don't leave yet. And as he gives them this information and ultimately reveals himself in the Eucharist, which is why I always encourage people to go and lead a sacramental life, because that's where you're really meeting Christ, in that Eucharist. Their eyes are open, and he leaves them, as you said, right?
Yes.
So the idea is to be approachable, talk to people, be inquisitive, meet them where they are. But also, at the same time, we have to instill that knowledge, correct them when they're going the wrong way. And then when they get that and they're excited about it, and you see them say, were not our hearts burning with desire, right? Burning when he was talking. It connects. That's where God's grace does the work. And I think as you live your life, we are trying to all be that St. Paul. We're trying to all be that walk to Emmaus, where we give as much as we can in as little amount of time as we have on this earth. And you can do it during Lent. It's a great time to give whatever you know, to share whatever you know, to learn whatever someone else knows. And in doing that, we leave them to be great leaders. They want to go out, and at the end of that passage, they all want to go out and tell everyone what they just heard. They all want to go out and tell everyone, oh my God, that was Christ, and they're like so excited. Because that's what you want. You want everybody to be on fire and keep continuing this, going and making the disciples of all nations. So it's a really cool passage, and I think it connects with what Francis is saying and what that book, what that movie would definitely be about. So if anyone can see it, they should.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Definitely during Lent, such a great time to help you grow in your faith and prayer life, and you could reflect on things and. Those were great reflection. Thank you so much, Chiva. I was actually thinking, let's go back to one of our favorite saints. Or I was actually going to ask France what her confirmation saint is, and who would be one of her favorite saints. And I know Chiva is actually, I can give you a little hint, starts with a T, ends in Lisieux.
Give it all away.
That's all. But,
my favorite,
go ahead.
No, I feel like really blessed. Like, a lot of my friends love that saint. Like, everyone is just like, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like surrounded. Like, am I like,
AKA little flower shout out.
Exactly, little flower shout out. But actually, I never really had a favorite saint. I feel like my saint found me. So during my confirmation, I was like gung ho, like, I want a male saint. Which I'm just letting you guys know now. You guys letting you know, like,
military
you guys,
background.
Yes. But like, anybody can have a male saint or a female saint. You just, when you go through that name, it has to be the same sex. So it'd be like, if you want Saint Peter to be your confirmation saint, it'd be like
like in Italian.
In
like
Italian.
Pierina
or something
would be
like
like
that.
The A, so it's like the female version of Peter, essentially. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just letting you know that. But my confirmation teacher didn't let me. So when the AOL, I know. So my AOL searches, if anybody remembers that, the whole, yes. I'm all like, all right, she told me to pray about this. Like, what is my female saint going to be? And I type in female saint, and St. Catherine of Siena popped up. And I've tried this so many times, never happened ever again. It was that one time. And I just researched her, and I was just, like, in love with her. And I was
so
like,
when you got this interview for this position that you're currently at St.
St. Catherine of
did you just go, I know I'm going to get it?
Absolutely not. No. I was just, and, like, I think one of the things that we both, like, clicked on was that she was very gung-ho also. I mean, if nobody really knows who St. Catherine of Siena is, like, she is actually the saint that had talked to the Pope, who was living in France at the time after the Middle Ages, and they were staying there because Rome was in plague during the bubonic plague. Mm-hmm. And so they moved to France, and they stayed there for 200 years. And everybody else told them, like, you guys have to move back to Rome. You know, this is where the seat of St. Peter is. But St. Catherine of Siena was actually the one who told the Pope, like, you know, God is telling you to move back. And they actually did. And it's such a blessing. Like, she has been following me throughout my life. And my parish, is, of course, is St. Catherine of Siena. And she is actually picked me, and I've loved her ever since. So,
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just so people know, you know, when we're talking about the sacraments, when you're going up for confirmation, mm-hmm. you know, the idea is when you are fully going to initiate yourself into the Catholic Church, you're going up for confirmation, but you're going to now pick a saint that you feel is reflective of where you are or where you want to be. And so you pick this name really to instill. You're praying to the saints to kind of give you the strength, give you the courage to go through this. And confirmation is such a great thing because and I tell my students this all the time, this is where you are getting those gifts. Mm-hmm. Those gifts that we talk about, that I grade them on, right? That you need. Those 7 gifts, whether it be wisdom, counsel, knowledge, you know, fortitude, piety, all these different things, awe, and they help you. But when you're going up for confirmation, and like you said, she picked you feel like, and it's amazing that you're now working at a parish honoring her. It's so, you know, well balanced because it's telling you these gifts that you received on that day, mm-hmm. you know, what are you doing? What are you making with it? Because people find a difference in trying to connect the gifts that you get at confirmation to the fruits of the Holy Spirit.
That is so true.
And so I always tell my students, the gifts are given to you at confirmation and your saint is helping you. But it's now what you do with these gifts. Mm-hmm. The fruits are the evidence and proof of those gifts working in your mm-hmm. life. If you are someone who understands and received those gifts of wisdom and knowledge, I should be able to see peace in your life. That's a fruit. Yeah. I should be able to see patience in your life. That's a fruit. I should be able to see joy, right? Love. And so I think those things that when we talk about saints and why we pick them at confirmation, understand what this is really saying for your life. What are you calling into your life? What do you want to see in your life? Mm-hmm. And how do you want it to move? Because you have to do something with that gift. And that saint has to move through you. And luckily, we're happy to be here with Franz, who just answered the call. You know, it's answering the call. That's the theme, answering the call.
And you are answering the call, and Caterina's answering the call, and we're all walking this faith journey together, and you guys are all answering the call, whether you know it or not, by listening in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the key. Yeah.
And I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. What about you, Chiva? Who is your confirmation saint?
Well, listen, I always scream it loud. My favorite saint is Saint Teresa of Lisieux. I always try to plug it in everywhere I can. we even did like I remember it was like a Lenten saints mission that we did at Hofstra where we had Lent with the saints. So every week we would come in and teach students about another saint, mm-hmm. and she was always my favorite one. And it's really because she did little things with a big heart, with great intentions. And I think we get so held down, especially living in the city, right? If you're like in New York City, thinking, well, what can I do? How can I help? I don't have the time. I don't have the, the patience. I think they always have this quote where they say, if you can't pray, if you find it hard to pray for a half an hour a day, you probably need to pray for an hour, right? Mm-hmm. But it's that idea of what she meant was, I'm going to do little things with great compassion, with great will and intention, so that I can make the best impact that I can. And that's what I loved about her, is because when we're living in this world in New York, everything's moving so fast for us. And we don't find the time. We don't give God the time. So I try to mimic that idea in the sense of what little things, what can I speak to someone? Sometimes a student comes into my classroom and they're off. They're not responding like they used to. Sometimes I see them want to cry. It's an all-girls school, so we're all dealing with high emotions, okay? We're teenagers and we're all girls, right? But, that's when I know I can do something here. I can comfort her. I can be that like you said, God moves through people. I can try to give her a word, and it means something. And those little acts that I do every day, as well as, just doing normal teaching and things. But you can do something with these little acts, with giving someone a seat on the bus or a train. We don't want to. Our feet hurt, we all want to get seated. But there's someone older who's probably going to hurt a lot more than you. Mm-hmm. There's a pregnant woman there. Little things. If you see that you have $1, I literally try to walk with like $2 or $3 open in my pocket to give out. So I don't have to fumble looking for my purse, but I can still give, right away if I see something. And those little things every day reminds me of what she would really want us modern day city life dwellers to live like, is how are you giving in little acts, and what little words can you say, what empowerment can you give to the next person? Right. And that's important during Lent, I think.
It's very important during Lent.
Yes, yeah.
Just doing those little things with a big heart, just like St. Catherine. St. Catherine, sorry, but St. Teresa of Lisieux.
And it builds up, I think, a habit. Like what you think, you say, and what you say you're going to do, and what you do becomes this habit. And that's what you really are trying to build up, a different habit, a pattern that allows you to get to that model of holiness that we're all aspiring to during confirmation.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I just thought you mentioned doing little things, and something that's really helped me, I believe, this Lent is trying to be a little bit more grateful and just thanking God.
Yes.
Just little by little, one thing a day, at least one thing a day, or just trying to have that more positive, grateful mindset. And that's been really helping me to feel a little bit more like happy and just truly grateful for all the blessings, and really counting your blessings.
I saw that somewhere. I think it was like Oprah. She always had those like deep Super Soul Sunday shows.
Super Soul Sunday.
Right? But you can pick up little tidbits here and there from different places. And she said that, one thing is to every single day write down, or at least say, like confirm it in your mind, 3 things that you are grateful for every day. Yes. 3 things. It has to be 3 different things every day. So I think if you can change and shift your perspective, I saw this quote where it said, instead of saying, in the morning, I got to get up to go to work, you can say, I get to go to work.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a job to go to. And I think that's so hard, because if you're like me, you're snoozing and you're like having a conversation with your head. Do I really want to go? I could live off of nothing. I'm so tired. I can figure this out. And then you realize, no, I need to get up. Yes. I got to answer the call. I don't want to be, a sloth in the 7 deadly sins. I got to answer the call. But it's that perspective, like you said, of saying, what am I thankful for? What am I grateful for every single day? It'll change how you look at the world. Because we can all name what we're mad about. The train was late. The traffic was horrible. Mm-hmm. They put something wrong in my food, and so on and so on. But if we can change our shift in our perspective, I think that'll make every single day. And again, that habit, you're building that habit of looking at your life in a positive way. It'll change how you move. And I mean, one last thing I'll just say for Lent, because I am doing a retreat right now for 93 ninth graders, okay?
Wow. Ooh, nice.
Pray for me, everyone, on Wednesday. But the theme is social media and how we are living out our faith. And I'm so excited. It's not my first retreat, but I'm so excited to share this with them, because I think for Lent, when you're thinking about giving up something, right, social media has become this idolatry that I don't even know if we understand is an idolatry for us. That's the first commandment, right? To honor and love God in a way where you do not, right, have any false idols, worship any other gods. And I think we got that confused as a new generation. Modern technology has let us feel like, well, we're not sacrificing to Baal or Zeus or anything like that, but you are putting something else before him, And a lot of the times it's social media. We spend so much time on it. We spend so much time missing moments because we've got the phone and the selfie stick. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally a photo junkie. But during this Lenten mission, I want people to think about how much time are you spending on social media, on TV, on video games, and what time you could take away and subtract for God. Yeah. How can you see what's holding up a precedent? What's priority? Sometimes people feel like if they didn't take a picture of it, it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And that's really sad. So, I mean, I would encourage people for Lent, think about how social media is playing a role in your life and how you can replace some of that time, if not all, with God.
Yeah, I totally agree with that conversation. Actually, we just went through our seventh grade retreat, and we asked all the kids for us to have their phones, and they were like, "Where can we get? Are we going to get this back? Like, you're going to get it back?"
They died right on spot,
and everything like that. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, my friend is like probably texting me, and I'm like missing out on this life thing." And then I was just like, this is a time where you just kind of have to like sit down and be fed, and you're just like, okay, but in the back of their mind, they're like in their social media.
It's a freak out. It's a freak out.
It's a real freak out. And I mean, I gave up social media for Lent one time, and it was hard.
It was hard. I was like,
yeah. I'd rather take on something now for Lent than take out. Like, so, and it's so great because if nobody really knows, 40 days is how long Lent is.
Right.
And I read in a book one time that to create a good habit, it takes at least continuously 25 days. So if you do
that habit,
if you do, and I am also bad at this, is like if you miss one day of like not taking on, or oh my gosh, I ate that chocolate or I ate that chicken and I gave that up for Lent, it's okay because it's 40 days. Like you could like get back on it, get back on that horse and keep on going. Like remember how you just did, how you felt, but then realize that you are human and Jesus is with you and this is Lent and it's okay. This is a time to really figure out your strengths, your weaknesses. What is the Holy Spirit asking you to do? What are the gifts of the Holy Spirit that you want to cultivate in your life? So I just really think that,
Well, I like the idea that you said spiritually fed. I think the idea that because that really that's what we're looking at. We're feeling like when we take this technology out that we are missing something, we are lacking something. But you're getting spiritually fed, and that's what you really want. You want something that's from the Holy Spirit. You want something that's going to move you that no one else can move you. And when you take the time to really sit and listen, because I don't think God can talk to you through all the yelling and chaos that's going on in our lives. Exactly. We got to be at some kind of peace, some kind of aloneness. I mean, every time you see Christ go through something, it's when he's alone. So.
Thank you so much. We actually have a caller again, so thank you so much. Good morning and welcome. What's your name?
Hi, I asked your panel, what does anyone think about the book A Course in Miracles and how it may relate to religion?
Okay, great question. Chiva.
It's funny. I just started reading that book, and it's so great. So, listen, it's a great book in the sense of it's talking to you in the spirit of Christ, right? It's a great book. It's literally for teachers, for psychologists, read it. And if you read it, I encourage everyone to, because it gives you a different aspect on how Christ is really moving and what is he saying in layman's terms in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the best quote that I have from that book is that nothing unreal exists and nothing real can be threatened. And when you understand Christ's love for you, when you understand your position in the world, that you are created in the image of God, everything else that distracts you, that takes away, that we are trying to replace or we're trying to fix during Lent, is so much more simplified. I don't need to look at, hurt and pain and anguish as the end all be all. I have to understand that God's love is the end all be all. So even when I go through something that's negative, it's going to set me up for something greater and good. Mm-hmm. And when you read that book, and I encourage you to, it's such a great read, but it's a long read. It's something that you really have to sit with, right? So if you're reading it, you take your time. But knowing that the ultimate takeaway from that book is that nothing unreal can be threatened. You can't undo the fact that you're a child of God. You can't undo that He cares about you, that your creation is one of His prized possessions, and He wants to stay with you on this journey. You can't undo that. So you can't really ultimately feel alone. You can't ultimately feel like you're abandoned in this world, because that's real. And then all the other things, people's feelings about you, people's ideas about you that you know aren't real. That's when you can shed those things. So just getting that takeaway, and I encourage you guys to read that book.
What is it called again?
A Course in Miracles.
A Course in Miracles.
Yes.
And who is it by?
I don't know. I forgot the author. Oh man, it's escaping me. She was a psychologist who.
A psychologist.
Yeah, it's a great read because she's a psychologist who felt that she was hearing this voice talk to her to write this book. She doesn't ever say that this book is written in her voice, in her thoughts. She says, I felt that I was hearing someone speak to me to tell me to get this message out. And it's been, revised and re-edited over the years, but it's something that a lot of people, especially psychologists, use because it's something that when you're talking to the people who are of that spiritual nature, spiritual background, it connects on that level so well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for calling in that book. I would love to read that too.
Yeah. Did you have another quick question, or did that answer your question, listener? Thank you. Have a great day. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Yes, we're on fire. I'm so excited. Keep the calls coming, listeners. Every week, we have questions. Any questions that you want to share with us, please let us know. We're getting ready to wrap up the show, but I just wanted to say that is so inspiring, everything that Franz and Triba mentioned today. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my co-host Barbara and Father Peter. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it today, but Barbara asked me to mention to our listeners that she's the author of children's books, and they're called Ella, Friends, and Ella, the book series, and they're great for children, and it's pretty much speaks to children about God, but through very everyday circumstances, very under the radar, not intrusive, not very theological or over the top, just through very simple language, and the pictures are great, and they're actually drawn by her son. And I encourage everyone to check out their website, and also you could buy them on Amazon. It's called Ella, Friends, and Ella. The first book is Sunday Dinner. You could check it out on Facebook as well. There's a Facebook link. And I just wanted to spread the word out there for her.
I love that her son is doing the illustrations.
So nice.
That's so cute.
Yes, it's very cute. They get to work on that together.
Yeah, good. Very good.
So I just wanted to share that as well. And so thank you so much. God bless you, listeners. With that, it concludes the show today. But thank you, Franz. Thank you, Chiva.
Yes.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Caterina, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you,
Oh,
and thank you,
problem.
Franz.
Thank you too.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yep. Bye bye.
Yes, happy St. Patty's Day.
Bye.